there's no cardinal attacking my windows at this point, and
Oh my god.
this has been 6 weeks, maybe 6 weeks of fun cardinal attacking. It's gotten worse and worse.
Beautiful.
And then we left, and then it's been like 85 bajillion degrees in Kansas, and there's been no cardinals attacking my windows. Now, will that return? There are lots of very nice days in the future where it's going to be rainy and cool, and so maybe that is just all this this devilish cardinal's waiting for. But as it stands, there ought to be.
It's a little hot right now.
Yeah, but yeah, it
Chill, right?
should be nice and chill, and we'll know because it will. The cardinal it has no problems letting us know. So, but anyways, that's the 3-episode saga, which we have released bi-weekly, so literally 6 weeks. Hopefully, this is the conclusion. Last time I had to talk about it, and now I'm going to start the show. Hello and welcome to the Year We Started a Podcast. It's a podcast born Phoenix-like from the ashes of last year's podcast. I'm here to talk about all the things that are secrety and oozy to us. I am your co-host, Jeff.
I don't want to talk about anything oozy. I'm the other guy, Nick.
And this is our podcast where we like to come together and talk about some things that are fun and interesting to us. Nick, I have a thing that I wanted to talk about.
Hit me.
That took me like a hot minute to actually understand how I felt about it. Before I dive into it, though, so on your phone right now, if you were to get an email, would you get a notification?
I would.
You would get a notification.
As long as it didn't go to as long as it goes to my primary folder. If it's like auto sorted to promotions or spam, then.
Okay, so here's the thing that happened recently. My wife. Hold on. Just for my own own edification.
Hey, listeners, there's this brand new joke.
My wife.
There it is. That's my new favorite joke. It's a brand new one.
Brand new. Hold on.
It's okay. I still quote Anchorman to people that don't know anything.
This is literally for my own, like I said, only for my own edification here.
My wife.
Anyways.
I still have like 3 Anchorman quotes that I still use all the time, and it's like, does anyone get them but me? No. Do I chuckle to myself afterwards? Yeah, 100%.
It just makes me happy.
It does.
Anyways,
it's
good. My spouse needed to log into my email to do something like 6 months ago or something like that. And at length, we've talked about notifications on this podcast and my own personal opinions on things. And also we've talked about my own deficiencies as far as responding to text messages or emails or voicemails and just like the gross.
Or clearing out your 800 notifications.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Just let's do a check-in real quick. Let's see how I'm doing. Because I vowed to do better. What do you think I'm at with my text messages these days, Nick?
742.
822. Pretty close.
Damn. Pretty close.
Pretty close.
I said 800 originally, and then I was like, no, he's trying to do better.
Yeah. I tried to do better. So obviously that's going great. Really the shining star.
Changed man, really, I'd say.
Changed man. But anyways, so my wife needed to go into my email for something, so she logged into her phone. And I'm kind of an open book. I'm not sure how everybody is in their relationships with their spouse, but like honestly, Nick, I would let you know my main email password. Like I'm so open book. Like I don't care about anybody reading whatever I have in my email. Like I'm very, very, very don't care about that at all. But my wife signed into my email, and then she started getting notifications for all my emails, and I felt very weird about that, and it took me a long time. This actually happened one other time, and I finally convinced her to turn it off. But it felt like really like I was trying to hide something, and I didn't like that. That wasn't the spirit at all. But go ahead. Yeah.
This is the important thing. So I have this exact same issue in a certain way. We've talked about how I don't clear my emails out either. And Jen has asked me if she wants me to clear out. Like she's incredibly detailed and organized with all of her online spaces because she's not
good
human
person,
or something
right.
like a robot. And so she's asked me if I want to when she's seen it, and I'm like, no, God, no. And she's like, well, why? Are you like hiding something? I'm like, no. Here's what you can have the password. It's in our shared password app thing that we use, and she all that. I've even been like, no, you can go look through. You can look through and see all the things that I should have deleted from 2014 if you'd like. But like the shame of her going through and having to deal with it,
exactly.
it is purely shame, is what it is. It is embarrassment at the fact that you are not handling something like an adult, even though you are an adult in every other way. You're like, no. You can't clear out this mess and ask me, do I still need my my freaking account validation email from freaking, I don't know, Target from 2013? I don't need you to ask me that question. It will make me feel even worse, okay?
Oh, man. Yeah, no, that's 100% true. And so, like, what happened was, so she had signed in again recently after having turned off all the stuff before. Mm-hmm. And so, like, we were sitting there, and then I would hear her phone or laptop ding, and I was just like, what's that? And it was my email notification. And I'm like, oh, like, it took me a long time to really feel why I didn't like it.
You know in your heart that it's a pointless email that you could have unsubscribed from, and you could have made that situation not happen if you had just persistently told, like...
Well, like, what
Nordstrom that you don't want to follow up.
What I finally realized was, it's like, I ignore these for a reason. And the thought that I'm having to care about them, like, secondarily through you is somehow, like, 8 times worse. It's like, here, like, I swear, like... I please log into my email at any point. I just don't want to hear the ding that I have an email that I have to ignore. Like, I don't want that pressure. That's why I ignore them in the first place.
You need to come to terms with the fact that it is shame. And
no, it is. There's no coming to the fact. Like, I know it is. But like, I don't want. That's exactly what it was like. Oh wow, every single time. It's not like this is because like that's what I originally thought was like. Oh, it's kind of because I'm like kind of a private person or a person who would get like self-conscious about things. It wasn't that. Like that's what I thought it was at first. But no, it's like I don't want to face the fact that like. All these things are things I should pay attention to because
that's a part of you decided to compartmentalize.
That's over there with my voicemails where I never check things. Like I don't. That my unread text messages. Like I don't want any of these things. Go away. But here you are, like ding, 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 ding. Like I don't want. No, log out. Set it off. Turn it off. I don't want it. This is terrible. This is bad for my mental health.
It's bad. Exactly right. It's like, look, that's a part of my life I've chosen to ignore for 10 years. If we try to unwrap it now, it's no good.
Right, yes. Like, I clearly have problems. It's fine. I'd appreciate it if I didn't get them dinged at me randomly while we're hanging out. Like, that's ultimately that. Yeah, just go away. Go away. I don't. If I choose to have not notifications, I don't want them coming, third party to me. That's not okay.
It's not okay at all. It is not. I 100,000% agree. I was gonna pull up some like really random old one, but I just scrolling through my email is taking me too long. You know what I mean? Like loading the next page is taking too long. Like I've got an Uber One deal or an Uber Eats deal from Christmas telling me that I get a discount on Uber Eats. I don't even have Uber Eats. I don't even have Uber. You know what I mean? Like, why is that in there? Why have I not deleted that? Why have I not unsubscribed? Leave me alone. That's why.
Oh, you made me open up my email to see if there's anything I wanted to like. Okay, how many unread emails do you think I have right now in my?
Like 10,000. Like 10,000.
Hey, you know what, Nick? You did a better job this time. You went slightly over. I have 9,255.
Good stuff.
Well, I do have 718 unwanted in another folder, so that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a social folder that catches like just stuff that I don't care about.
We have to move away.
We gotta move on.
This is like the exact thing I was talking about. The anxiety this causes. So this is terrible. Have you played the video game 7 Billion Humans?
No.
I think. So first off, this is the thing that I think I'm gonna do as like a fun thing with my team to play this game like in a couple different groups or something like that to compete against each other. I think
with the losers getting fired.
I don't want to resign them to that yet, but depending on how bad they do, yeah,
that's fair. Okay,
just kidding. I don't think any of them have any idea that this exists, but just in case you do, don't worry, I'm not gonna fire you before. But no, I
don't think they would have taken that seriously.
I don't think
you had to preface that one.
This is for HR. But no, anyways, so I think that the video game 7 Billion Humans might be the single best way to learn programming that has ever existed ever, maybe? Question mark?
Oh, really?
And for any I think it's on iOS right now for like $5. And if there's anybody out there who's even remotely interested in doing programming for a profession, you should play this game. It is like, it gives you assignments of like what you want the things on the screen to do, and it gives you actually pretty relevant commands that are like kind of like pseudocode, what you would have on, but like it all translates really well to like any major programming language. Like it just, does some directional things and loops and conditional checks and things like that. And it's all super, super relevant to like real life things. And I've thought for a long time, and there's a non-zero chance that in the almost 2 years we've done this podcast that I've talked about this one other time.
I don't believe you have. I don't believe you have.
Well, anyways, so it released on the Switch like 3 years ago or something like that. Ooh. And I beat the game, and I literally would put that above all the classes I've done for computer science. It does such a gentle job of teaching you the like general like problem solving sort of things you need to do in programming, and it's fun, which is obviously a huge plus, but it's also like handles like teaching you how to handle like variables in memory, and that and handle positions, and doing checks before doing calculations or doing cumulative calculations. And it's just it's done in such a great way that I really don't think any class I've ever taken or been like privy to has done. And I would recommend it. I think it should be like I literally think it should be a class for everybody in the computer science. Like, it is so good. And it's not like so good in the sense like it teaches you like the concepts and introduces you to how to do some basic programming. I think it's like beneficial at a higher level than that. Like it does do those things. Like it teaches you general concepts like what a loop is and what an iterator is and things like that. But it introduces you through problem solving in a way that is not how actual programming classes teach you. And I do think that the problem solving part of it is actually the hardest part. And so, anyways,
I completely agree with that. I just like, this is not important, but I just feel like I want to validate you.
Please interrupt me. Yeah, you're good.
No, like I agree with that. The courses that I've struggled to retain the most are the courses where you implement a new concept without applying it to a larger project, right? Like the courses where you use like inheritance to create a class that matters is a more important, or like that can benefit from using inheritance is a better way to put that, is a better course than one that just says, okay, make something that inherits from something else, because you're not learning, right? And like, I'm sure loops are an easy one to show how those can be beneficial anywhere. And like basic concepts, I think all the basic concepts are the easiest ones to learn how they apply. But my point is just that, like, I agree with you. I think that, I've had professors who, like, I didn't get a lot out of it because I just didn't know how to apply some of the concepts well. And I still think back to like certain courses and I'm like, I'm proficient at that. Like, like on a purely theoretical level, like, and I haven't touched it in 2 years. Don't worry about it. It's not important.
But like, so legitimately, 7 Billion Humans, a video game. It's a fun game. If you are even remotely interested in any sort of programming or a computer science sort of profession, and you're like, I wonder what this will be like in real life, that is, one, the best learning tool, but also two, the most realistic simulation of like what my day-to-day is, bar in like bar none, bar any sort of YouTube anything that you've ever learned about, like, oh, this is how you do blah 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 data science or whatever. It ultimately comes down to creative problem solving, and this sort of stuff is like that in a nutshell. Like, it is in a fun way that is gentle to like take you along the path, but then ultimately throws you out there to figure it out. And I've done school stuff over like back in 2010, 2009, like where I learned some computer science stuff. I've learned some computer science stuff through formal education here recently. There's nothing that has been as good as this stupid video game. It's unapologetically coding. Like, it's teaching you how to code, like, with this sort of stuff. Like, it's not trying to hide what it is, but it does so in such a fun way, and that is so actually representative of how you actually have to do this sort of stuff. And I love it. It's fantastic. And it's funny, too.
That's a plus. I think those kinds of games need to be like a little self-aware and a little fun. I am. Oh, what console do you think? Did you try it on, and like, does it like lend itself well to iOS or?
So I originally played it on Switch. I think it was like flipping like $19 or $20 on Switch, so a little pricey. When I was going to maybe do some stuff with my team, I did today buy it on iOS. It was like actually it was $4.99 or something like that.
I guess the question is, did it feel limited by either of those platforms if you tried it?
Yeah. So it is completely fine to play on iOS. Like,
cool.
Completely, because it's all drag and drop of code. You don't have to type anything unless you want to make notes, which I do. You'll eventually want to make notes, like to yourself, to keep yourself aware of why you did a particular block of code and stuff like that. But it is totally fine, and honestly, the notes part of it works better on iOS than it does on Switch, because typing on Switch obviously has challenges, whereas typing on iOS is a keyboard, which we all are aware of. So that part works really well. So honestly, I think I haven't gone super into the hard part yet on iOS, but having beat the entire game on Switch and having played the first bit of it on iOS, I think iOS, especially for the price of $4.99, 100% recommend. I think that is it is a really it's a puzzle game above all puzzle games that also has infinite value for actually teaching people how programming in the real world works, more than anything I've ever seen.
That's really cool.
Including the stinking schools that are supposed to teach you how it works. So nothing but a glowing endorsement from me. I think it's great.
Well said. Damn. That's high praise.
High praise, Nick. Speaking of high praise, or low praise, or praise in general, books.
Okay. This isn't really specific to books. My thing is not a long topic or an interesting topic, but I just want to like get at you with it. Do you have any like pet peeves in storytelling? Because I have one that's like rankling me pretty hard, and it's like, I don't think that other people care about this.
I'm sure I do, but given the lack of time between when I started this sentence and where I am now, I don't think I haven't thought of anything, but definitely I can probably think of some things. But yeah, tell me, what's your pet peeve?
I'm not even sure this is substantial enough to be a topic. So if you delete this or delete whatever, yeah. But I had to get it off my chest, and that's the reason I say that is like I had to get this off my dude. I cannot stand when the main character in a book is particularly prominent in books more than TV shows and such as I believe. But like when the main character in the book is just a freaking power fantasy. I cannot stand when it is obvious that it is like just a power fantasy for the author, for this character to be, for the main character to just be all of the awesome in all of the ways that you could ever hope.
Yeah.
It's like they're unbelievably clever because their parents taught them to read, and it's like, what? Like, this is not sufficient to be like, but I loved to read, and therefore I learned 14 languages by the time I was 9. And also I could pick up any mathematical concept through all... No, that's not... how it works. I like to read too. I was a little nerdy boy too. I still only speak the one language. It's not. I think this is mostly like a fiction, fantasy, whatever thing, but it just takes me out of stories entirely, and it like is detracting from a book that from an audiobook that I'm otherwise loving, and I told you about last time we spoke, which was the King Killer Chronicle book one, The Name of the Wind.
Yeah,
and it's really good. And it's very, very charming, and it's got a great setting, and yada yada yada. I've been listening to it while riding my bike or driving, and it's been very fun and casual to listen to, and extra in all the fun ways that you want a fantasy series to be. And also at the same time, I have to listen to how genius this boy is, because he's the best boy, because I don't
gross.
know.
I don't like it.
Right.
I don't like
exactly.
it. I don't like it. I already like. I'm already like a critic of fantasy or like just fiction in general. So like there are certain things I do love. Like, don't get me wrong. Like some of my most favorite things are fiction, but man, I do have like a waterfall of things that might make things not be okay for me to like listen to or read. And I would say what you described is definitely a potential deal breaker for me. Yep. It's really weird because I have been on such a crazy nonfiction kick that even like the idea of that, like if I even sniffed that in a million years, I would just back off so quickly right now. But no, like I totally agree. Realistic fantasy, in fiction in general, a realistic protagonist is really a big important thing for me. And if I don't have something that's kind of that, then it's really hard for me to.
It's like it's not grounded in humanity. I don't need it to be grounded in physics. I don't really care about the details of physics, but I need like it's the same thing with like even in fiction that isn't explicitly that isn't fantasy, right? Like 1984 we've talked about on here before. 1984 has very fantastical situations, right? Like I mean the circumstances of the future in 1984 with the three major countries that have had this decimated the world is fantastical and unrealistic in a lot of ways, right? You have to like suspend your disbelief about how they got there. In some ways you can see the circumstance, but the thing that grounds it is the humanity. Right, the thing that makes it profound and interesting is the humanity of it all, like of the people and like your connection to the people. And I've been on the opposite end where I haven't gone through like I've been struggling so much with nonfiction for this last year or so, while you've been on your great kick. And part of it is I just want something like entertaining to enjoy while I'm going about, like when I'm either riding or driving, and that's like the main place that I'm listening to audiobooks. And I have a hard time like being very attentive to nonfiction, and if I am not attentive to it, then I feel like it's a waste of time and yada yada. But the important thing, my point is, dude, I don't even know what the point of a story is if the story is just like, think of how cool this guy would be if we could have somebody this cool. It just doesn't. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
You're not saying anything.
I will put my own favorite sort of book on the potential chopping block here, but I do feel like I walked the line the entire time when reading Project Hail Mary, which is the Andy Weir novel, where it is definitely, wow, this crazy guy does really cool things the entire time, and that like it was always on the tipping edge of potentially falling off the wrong side of that. It for me personally, it fell on the side of okay every time, but only just because by golly, is that like a really cool guy, does amazing things, and Andy Weir is his critics are, if anything, that exactly back with The Martian and stuff like that. Like it is like, well, that's completely ridiculous, and it is completely ridiculous. It just slid under the threshold for me.
This isn't like a deal breaker, or you can't have fun in other ways in the story, right? Like there's other ways the story can still be good.
Yeah, but I could see why people would get like annoyed by that sort of thing. Like 100%. Like I would not blame them for it at all.
It's so hard. Because I completely agree with you, and I think that part of where this comes from is like writing characters without like an expertise or an understanding of like what you know what I mean. Like you often like that circumstance where the person in Project Hail Mary, the character in Project Hail Mary for our listeners, is a public school teacher who exited academia but was otherwise an expert in this one scientific field, this one like narrow scientific field, and like years and years after leaving academia in like through tons of conflict, that person was needed to go on this crazy scientific mission into space and yada yada. Who cares? The point of this all is to say, I think where it gets like fantastical and almost unbelievable and like silly is to think about like, why would this random school teacher be so capable at all this stuff, especially
Right.
if they've left academia for forever.
Yeah.
And like it's like and then you have to start like filling the gaps with like just nonsense of like but they're enterprising spirits and they were just
Of course, yes. Yeah, we've just recognized how fantastic they are.
right. I also think that there's an easy to do thing in storytelling of just making the main person like the greatest, because of course they're the greatest. Like we want the main person to be an awesome protagonist we can all look up to. It's like a chosen one circumstance is not actually very interesting in most cases.
Yeah.
It's just yeah.
Yep, no, 100%. Like that, it looks good on paper, but yeah, not how that actually works.
Yes. I'm sorry, I've derailed us pretty hard there.
No, it's okay. So I'm gonna pop us back in. So the thing that I actually looked into a little bit this week, and actually a little bit before this week too. It was a thing I had popped into some show notes of my own back a while ago, and then realized why it had started to show up here and there, which is kind of a weird thing where you hear a historical thing that happened a little bit, and then you find out that there's like a show that's being made or a movie that's being made because of it. And you're just like, wow, there's a 0% chance this would have came across my radar. I guarantee it. Unless there was ulterior motives by the media company that was turning this into a movie, which is just, I don't know. That's very, very strange.
It is bizarre. It's bizarre to think that like your random happenstance and random things that you think about could be influenced by like broader
and it's like
marketing stuff,
it's very not random. Like some random person at the whatever company it was that made this knew that if they wanted this to be a success, they needed to start planting the seed that is the interesting story of this. I don't even know how I would describe it.
This is the same as the that one phenomenon we just talked about, isn't it? It's the same thing as the guy who oh god, I should know this, but the name of the phenomenon is such an obtuse random name, but it's the guy who we talked about this a few weeks ago. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So basically, so first off, this is a thing that is now a movie. When I originally came across this, I did not realize that this was getting turned into a movie. I thought it was very interesting, and so I put it into my notes, and then I realized later on that this had turned into a movie. I'm like, well, I guess we should talk about this, because it is kind of crazy. Do you know the movie Jerry and Marge Go Large?
No, I do not. What is Jerry and Marge Go Large?
Nick, do you like a good old-fashioned promotion that goes poorly? Because that's exactly what this is going to be.
Can I tell you that, like, I know that Schadenfreude is bad in all cases. I don't know if I pronounced that right. But that I really, really do like when promotions go poorly.
Well, don't worry. Here we go. So, oh man, I love some really bad marketing. Man, so
that's what I'm saying. I like it's so. There's something cathartic about it. Something good in the world.
It's mathematically terrible, and I love it. It's so good. Okay. So in 2003, there was a lottery that happened in Michigan where if the main lottery did not hit, so meaning like if the original 5 or 6 numbers, like if nobody had those original 5 or 6 numbers, then the lottery would roll down to 4 number winners or 3 number winners, etc., etc.
Okay.
And actually, based on my notes, 6 numbers. So if there was no 6 number winner, meaning if there's nobody who had all of the numbers, then all of the profits would roll down to
The people who had 5 numbers.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so what this came out to be was and honestly, I actually did look at the actual math behind this, and they at that point were based on what the average number of purchases of tickets were going to happen, still going to make a profit, but only because the number of tickets they were going to have was not enough to beat the ultimate there is a threshold of where if there's enough tickets bought from this strategy after there's no 6-ticket winner or 6-number winner, that it turns into a losing proposition. And so basically the people that designed this thing did not anticipate a lot of people buying tickets, basically. Like that's what it came out to be, because if they had, mathematically they're going to lose money, which is not a great thing to do when you are trying to run a lottery.
Right.
So there was the retired couple of Jerry and Marge. Jerry was a long-time factory worker guy. I don't remember exactly what he did, but he had retired recently. And without talking to his wife, realized that this had happened and felt like he had a very good chance to win. And ultimately invested what ended up being about $2,000 or $3,000 and won $6,000, which is not crazy. Like that's definitely a big, like that's a good chunk of change for sure. Nobody's going to turn down a couple $1,000s, but not nothing to make a huge dent in retirement. Yeah.
Okay.
And then he made another investment of $8,000. I think this is about the time that he got his wife involved as well. By the way, they're I think both still living and are literally the most wonderful people to watch on YouTube.
Aww.
Like they are so interesting and fun to listen to. So from all of this, definitely go watch a video of them. This whole story is so great from their mouths, much more than mine.
Okay.
But anyway, so they ended up spending $8,000 and they doubled their money that time. So that
Pretty
was like
cool.
Basically what they had done was mathematically Jerry had done the statistics on the thing, and if they bet enough money, given within a couple standard deviations, like he was for sure going to, if nothing else, break even, but much more likely he was going to make money the more they bet. And so
Makes sense.
and so they did. So they continued to make bigger and bigger bets. They started to get into a position where they were going past the limitations that the machine could do in a 24-hour period. So they would show up and they're like, we want to invest $8,000 and that's going to take all day. And the place that they had originally gone to, they would honor it to the best of their ability, but it got to be an issue. And then Michigan shut down that particular lottery. Their quote unquote reasoning for it was that it was unpopular, but I definitely think that it had to do, and it's not an unpopular opinion to think that it was just
Jerry
because
Marge.
they did not realize why they were losing so much money.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna say just expose the issue, right?
Yeah. So they ended up finding another place that was doing a very similar game with the windfall style lottery that was out in Massachusetts. So to get from Michigan to Massachusetts was like an all-day trip, and they would have to do a lot of money again to make that break even. So they did like an initial test run of the game in Massachusetts. They had similar results, and then they started to try to get more people in their town to buy in to their idea that they could basically take money and turn a huge profit on it. So they started a business and they sold shares at $500 a share. They ended up having 25 people that were a part of their shareholders back in 2005. So we're at this point only a couple of years into all this stuff. So the game in
I quite like this.
yeah, no, it's just it's just a love it's a lovely thing. So Michigan's game they shut down because quote unquote lack of sales. Massachusetts was the closest place that had a similar game. They tested it out. At this point, they had 25 shareholders in their company, as you do. What ended up happening, Nick, in the as this continued to grow, they would go to a particular gas station, I believe it was. They would spend there 10 hours a day for 10 days straight to buy all of the tickets in order to, before all the numbers were called. And they did that 7 times per year.
I love it.
That was their company's, that's what they did. They took investors' money. They showed up at this place. They spent 10 hours a day for 10 days. They would get all of these tickets. Then they would wait until the actual winning numbers got called. And then they would, by hand, Nick, by hand, they would go through and check to see which of these were winners. And they would then store...
And they would always get winners, and they would win Oh, I love it so much. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they would take all the winners, and they would walk into the place to cash them all out. And then they would take, the thousands and thousands... Actually, what it ended up being, they had 18 million losing tickets that they stored in tubs just in case they got audited by the IRS. Just to prove that they were on the up and up on this with their business. Which was
by the way,
a lot. 18 million's a lot, Nick.
The lottery companies are the ones that failed here. You know what I mean? The lottery companies set up a system that was beatable. I do not believe that these kinds of things should be... I mean, we should audit them. We should make sure that they are on the up and up. But those kinds of people should not get in any kind of freaking trouble for understanding how the system is made. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. During this time, there was also a group of kids from MIT that figured out that this style of gambling or this style of lottery, ultimately, if it did go to the waterfall or windfall lottery style, it would not be profitable for the lottery in general if people spent enough money. And so they also did a kind of similar thing where they got a lot of people to invest money so that they could buy a bajillion tickets and make a lot of money. Ultimately, this did get leaked to a newspaper and then it quickly got shut down by Massachusetts as well. But Nick,
I just want to say, one, this is a danger of things getting too big for them for their own good, and two, somebody was snitched and I don't like it.
Yeah. This is kind of one of the probably most brief topics that will be a main topic that we talk about. But so the MIT group got involved. That ended up getting leaked to the Boston Globe, and then ultimately got shut down. But Nick, the main guy who started it, Jerry Selby, he ended up having his 6 kids, 14 grandkids, and 10 great grandkids all had all their college paid for through this thing.
Hell yes.
He ended up making 27. He ended up making $27 million from this.
Yes, let's go.
And not to mention all the other money that the other shareholders made. The MIT crew that also figured this out made similar amounts of money. And yeah, they basically forced they forced the Massachusetts lottery to shut down temporarily. Especially this particular game. Turns out, Nick, if you have a game where if enough people spend enough money that they make money, they'll find a way to get enough people to invest that amount of money. And so, yeah, if you have a mathematical game that does not favor the house,
so good.
It's not
correct.
It's not great.
That's why, I mean, isn't there, I don't know if this is the fact, but I'm pretty sure that's why casino, not just why, but if casinos had games that were 50-50, they would have a financial responsibility to shareholders to make it not.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you've ever walked into a casino, they're typically very nice. They don't pay that on deficit.
Right. You walk into the freaking casino and it's like the chandelier has no lights in it. It couldn't afford the lights.
Right. Those are the casinos you
I
want to
got a
go
wire
to.
hanger.
Those are the ones you want. Like if they're barely keeping the lights on, that's the casino you want to find.
Our slots only have sevens and cherries, and it's just not working out for us well.
We don't know what the problem is. Have a good time.
But it's true. It's true of lotteries in general, right? Like lotteries are like meant to be and like have to be in order to exist profitable for the people who run them. And I know that doesn't mean like you can't get win more than you pay in a lottery. I'm not shaming anyone for using a lot, but like just we should all be aware, right? Like lotteries and casinos and gambling in general in any capacity, they are designed for the people who set it up to win, right?
Right.
They are.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said before, take a look around. They didn't do this on a deficit. So
right.
it was actually a really interesting thing too, because when they originally when they got the original tip for this, they started to do like criminal investigations and like we're like expecting this to be some sort of big like drug ring or like some mafia thing. Turns out, it was just people that were better at math than the people that were at the state lottery.
Some nerds in a college and a nice old man from Michigan.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yep, no, it all was on the complete up and up on both sides. So everybody walked away and they're just like, yeah, well, this was a mistake. My bad. Our bad. Congratulations on your millions of dollars.
That's hilarious and fantastic, and I love it for Jerry and Marge. I'm
yes.
for them.
So I said it before. There is actually a movie out about this that I realized after I had done some of the initial legwork on some of this. It is like a Jerry and Marge Go Large, and it has Bryan Cranston as the old guy who figures it out originally, which is the Breaking Bad guy, if you're not familiar.
Yep. I love Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
Actually, he's a human treasure.
And the guy who is at the first the main gas station in Massachusetts is none other than Rainn Wilson from The Office. So Dwight with a beard, and so that's great. It is it's like 30% cheesy, but it's a good laugh, a good time. We actually haven't finished it yet, so I can't like completely give it a review, but it's just a happy little version of it all. So if you want a very lighthearted take on a true story, it's a good one.
Sounds like a good time.
Have a good time.
Sounds pretty fun.
Pretty chill. Anyhow, Nicholas, we should call this good. Yeah, so if you want to, we have this one where we talk about things. We also have our Patreon podcast where we talk about things. Most recently, talk about video games, talk about Formula One, talk about downhill racing on bicycles. That is our Patreon podcast, which you can find on patreon.com/TiWasApp.
You can also find all of that at... Sorry.
And everywhere
You can find
where
all of that.
podcasts are sold.
You can also follow us at TiWasApp on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And you can find all of that at TiWasApp.com or wherever podcasts are sold. Which
Yeah, Nicholas, speaking of selling things, thank you so much for potting with me. And if you find a bunch of winning lottery tickets, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to get in on some weird pyramid scheme of lottery tickets with you. I
think you used pyramid scheme wrong there. That's not a pyramid scheme for Jerry and Marge.
No,
they did great.
It's actually very specifically not. It's just So Nick,
I always say that because we will not be defaming Jerry and Marge's good name on this podcast. No.
And if you find a way to turn a 80% profit in today's economy, I am okay with that. You let me know.
I will let you know.
Yeah, and don't tell any of our listeners. I'll be unlikely.
I'll tell them to get them to invest in our amazing lottery defaming scheme, and we'll have not scheme. You know what I mean? Defaming.
Have you heard about NFTs? Oh man, I got some good NFTs for you to invest in.
Okay, that's where the podcast ends. Thank you all so much for potting with us. You're welcome. This has been the Here We Started the Podcast. I just said you're welcome to myself. Thank you all for listening.
Got it in one. Goodbye, everybody.